So yeah, quick show of hands. How many people caught the talk earlier on UE5 and the Faust plugin? Seeing a couple. Rob. Awesome. I was going to expound on that plugin. If folks wanted to walk along, I believe there's a Google Drive link that I've got shared in an early version of this plugin. Still working on UI and some finished up parts of that before I submit the pull request for it. But yeah, super excited about it. I can walk through that. I can walk through meta sounds. I have little tutorials kind of set up for both. And if anyone just wants to open this up for a Q&A, let me know. So yeah, how many people have experience with meta sounds in UE5 actually? You can start there. Show of hands. All right, I'm seeing like one kind of raised hand, so yeah, let's
Can
go
you
there.
hear us when we speak like that? Can you hear us? Can you
I can hear you.
Okay. So someone can, Rob, can you say something just to...
Only Rob has experience with meta sound.
Awesome. Yeah, I can hear that. Yeah, I'll start sharing my screen. Here we go. And entire screen, allow. And here we go. Cool. So this is UE5. You know, I'm gonna just delete some of this stuff. So this is just like a normal product. You know, the third-person template. If you actually start messing with it, this is it. Nothing too fancy. UE5 looks a lot like UE4 with like a little bit flatter, less skeuomorphic kind of look to it. And the new big thing for audio is meta sound, right? So meta sound is an asset, right? There's different meta sound types. And when you create a new asset, this is kind of what you get, right? You get these nodes that can't be deleted in this kind of graph designer. First off, here, let me toggle back. Sorry for the infinite window. How many people can like read the text on my screen with this? Is this readable?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So the idea for meta sound, right, is that these things get compiled and are kind of injected into different parts of the audio engine pipeline. So the only one in the Luis version is meta sound sources, right? And the idea of the meta sound source is it's something that plays, right? It's like kind of a point source in the world that can be spatialized. And in the future, there's going to be other kind of meta sound interfaces. One of which is going to be like a meta sound source effect, right? Where the input instead of on play is going to be input audio, right? There's going to be some different arbitrary parameters. There's meta sound submixes, which are going to be both like submix effects that have input audio for like mixed down sources that are then injected into the audio graph, mixed down, the submix graph. And there will be like submixes as well, right? Something that handles downmixing itself from an arbitrary set of sources. But for now, it's just a source, the meta sound source. And for that, we have like this very specific interface. We just have an input that gets triggered on play. And then you can trigger that you're done playing, right, as a sound. And then the actual resulting output audio from the graph. So this thing is called a trigger. It was kind of talked about briefly in the talk. And the idea of the trigger is it's a lot like a bang, if you're familiar with Maximus P. The only difference is that bangs kind of are triggered either on or off, right, in like the callback, right? Triggers have under the hood like sample accurate kind of scheduling implementation, right? So let's start with like the most basic thing, right? So let's just do a wave player, right? This is something that plays an audio asset. And we are going to say I'm finished. We're gonna hit that. I'm just gonna get the audio output of this thing. And when this meta sound is played, we're gonna play this thing. And I can kind of hear a little bit of the crowd noise. All right, who votes for collapse?
Okay.
As an asset. Show of hands. Okay, collapse versus explosion. Who prefers the explosion to the collapse? All right, collapse it is. So, can people hear this, by the way?
Sorry?
Can people hear this, the audio from the game?
No.
Gotcha. Let me actually just check that real quick. That may be on my end. Let's see, settings. Yeah, I forget that there's an affinity here. Interesting. Yeah, I'm wondering if there's some issue why there's no audio stream here. Okay, well I can keep showing the graph in the meantime. All right, I'll just show this, and unfortunately you'll have to trust me with how it sounds, and a little bit of I guess this makes it I can make more comment. So let me just close this. So yeah, when I hit play to preview this meta sound after selecting the collapse asset,
We see the sound. You can see the sound.
See, yeah, the visual feedback of the sound. Yeah, and I'll describe it as I go. Hopefully that'll work. But this is actually these triggers are actually sample accurate on this code. So let's just do something like a metro object. It's called a trigger repeat, right? And instead of routing to the play, we're going to hit that and kind of re-trigger this, once a second, right? So that's repeating it once a second. But we can go really granular with this. And then rather than in UV4, previous implementations of similar situations like this would quantize to the render quantum. This is sample accurate, right? So we end up getting basically sample accurate stitching and repeating of an audio asset. So something like this will actually play 10 times a second and truly even rather than just kind of jittering all over the place. This is kind of an issue actually for things like in Fortnite and some Unreal games, stuff with automatic weapons and also end music were kind of the two main focuses for Fortnite. With the stuff with the automatic weapons, it was the rate of fire would oftentimes be quicker than we could guarantee no jitter for based on our buffer size, right? So this was a huge ask with something that would allow for sample accurate stitching. And the other thing for music, there are these various music systems, right? If you've ever seen Fortnite Creative is a different kind of pillar of Fortnite where you can kind of build things, and people build a lot of kind of these musical systems that kind of schedule these kind of wacky drum machines. Those were never sample accurate for better or for worse, and you can actually hear it when people show off their stuff on Twitch and such. There's this weird jitter that I can't unhear personally, but I think a lot of people kind of got used to it and almost kind of have a weird affection for how janky it sounded, So yeah, so this is kind of a sample accurate. Sorry, did someone say something? Okay, I don't think I heard anything, so yeah, I think I'm just getting a little bit of my own echo, which is fine, but I just keep thinking that someone's speaking. Cool, so this light purple output is actually audio, right? So meta sounds, kind of the difference between meta sounds and similar visual programming languages like this is that it is typed, right? So this trigger, this inlet, is actually a type not necessarily like an event flow. If you're familiar with blueprints, right, it looks kind of similar to something like here, let's start, just create a new one.
Ethan,
Yep.
do you have somewhere something called presentation, how it's called again? I think that there is an option to say that you want to share the audio, not only the mic, but also the audio of the computer.
Yeah, let's try it. So right now, I'm not super familiar with Google Meet.
Okay.
Which is, so I can actually maybe like create a virtual. Should we try this actually?
Yes. Try to start the presentation, and when you again start the presentation, see if there is some button saying presentation audio.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I hit stop presenting and restart entire screen. Entire screen. Gosh, yeah, it doesn't provide me with the option here.
If instead of entire screen you select a window, specific window.
That's a good point. Let me try it. All right, I'm gonna try playing this again. I'm gonna hit 1.0, so this is more audible.
No. Okay.
No.
No. Sorry. Okay.
Got it. Bummer. Here's like one last thing I can check, which is this. Okay, that's a minimize button, not a options door. Yeah. Gosh. Yeah. The only other thing I can think of is maybe trying to use voice meter or something similar. Wait. No, that didn't do anything. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'll really only be able to describe such things. And sorry about that. I can also kind of like record the demos with the audio after the fact for people who like it. Yeah, if you're familiar with Unreal, right, there's kind of this gameplay scripting environment called Blueprints, right, that you may have seen in the past. And I think a lot of people kind of treat, when they first see meta sound, right, they treat this trigger as like the exact pin in Blueprints, right? In Blueprints, it's kind of this like I'm gonna try something like this, and right, like let's say like this is node in Blueprints. You execute a generic console command, the thing that you type in here. When you actually drag this here, this is actually procedural language, right? This is actually changing the flow of execution. And it's important to note that this is very different than the way that meta sound works, right? Where just because you drag this doesn't guarantee that there's a singular line of execution that we don't reorder in terms of the actual line of execution. This is simply like a payload similar to Max that flows to the right. Of whether this input is being triggered or not. So so that's triggers, and that's kind of like the heart and soul of scheduling and music making and procedural music making in MetaSound. And audio stream is actually like in the graph and in the same exact runtime as the triggers and kind of the quote unquote non-audio kind of parameter of Val, right? In that sound. This is a deliberate choice. This is so that everything is kind of scheduled and computed, like as part of the callback and part of the render quantum, which allows us to do really cool things like get audio from an envelope follower, right? Like for example, if you check out this thing, right? We're able to use this and plug in the actual audio from this thing and generate like this like float that could then be side-chained into, if you want to just do like a quick mixer, right, and control the gain with this thing, right? Let's try this. Yeah. So if you like set up like say a saw waveform, right, and we just kind of move this in here, to the output in here, and I'm going to get the right channel in here. So now in the left channel, right, we are tracking the loudness of the left channel of the wave player, and using that to drive the gain for this saw oscilloscope. And you can see this is even, versus when we break this pin, right, it's going to be like this kind of static gain. So I think this will be something that, yeah, I can you see the metering on the right side?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let me just break this pin like, yeah, so this is actually even. Here, I'm just going to do that to break the link. I think that's an editor bug. But here you can see this like kind of like static saw that's playing versus when we drive this with the envelope follower, the saw is actually following the contour of the wave player itself. So this is really useful because you can do cool stuff like feed-forward compressors, right, using the envelope follower to drive a gain, and then use the attack and release from this as you would the attack and release for like a feed-forward into a gain computer that you then implement in MetaSound. And then say you want to do feedback, right? This is going to be, for the most part, kind of deprecated for the next version, replaced with a slightly different system that is akin to it. But if you want to actually do like a recursive delay line, right, something with like a feedback system, there's a concept of send and receive objects. And the send and receive objects are typed, right? But you can actually say like, oh, I want to send this to tap 1, right? And then type out audio to tap 1, and elsewhere, right, be able to receive it, right? If I can spell receive, right, there we go. And then matching addresses, match addresses, and our MetaSound vocal. Yeah, basically just allow you to do these kind of recursive things where when we compile this and evaluate it, this is just a circular buffer, right? What we do is actually record this thing, feed it in, buffer depth out, and then float out on the next evaluation cycle. Because of that, there is one buffer callback or latency here, or actually a minimum of one buffer callback latency that we kind of lazily retrieve, so you actually lose sample accuracy when you do sends and receives. There are similar abstractions planned in the future that allow for more sample accurate delay buffering, where you simply get a warning if you try to get a delay, a feedback delay that's smaller than your render quantum, how quickly you are generating audio each callback. But will allow you to do something like, oh, I want like, this delay line to be like exactly 700 samples. We can honor that if your render buffer size is 512, right, for example. So first off, like before I move on from here, are there any questions just about the graph, MetaSound in general, that I can talk about?
We can't hear you anymore.
Oh, I stopped talking for a second. I was opening up the floor to
Okay, sorry.
questions on everything so far.
The interaction has complicated a little bit because of the delay and because we can't hear the sound, so sorry.
Right, yeah, and I apologize for that. That was something that, if I was a better Google Meet professional, I would be able to get going. But yeah, unfortunately, yeah, it's going to be a lot of description of audio. So, okay, so this is like the actual graph designer. This is how this stuff gets played. And I'm just gonna save this as like a new sound source. And kind of the cool thing is that if you've used Unreal in the past, right? Say you create like a new audio actor, right? Like let's just do like an empty actor in here. Or actually, let's just attach it to the camera. Now that I think about it. So, gosh, with this like tiny text, it's really funny. Say we just create like a new audio source, and then it can be called whatever. And you know, the cool thing about meta sounds is that it is embedded into the whole engine, right? So anything that you design there, you know, you can use these like kind of static sounds, these static wave files. But meta sound acts exactly like it, right? And kind of because it honors the same interface that this normal audio asset uses, you can just use it like a wave file, right? And we gauge its duration based on when it stops. The way that the audio engine Unreal is set up is actually kind of interesting. It is pessimistic about duration, right? It almost never assumes that duration is actually like a static entity for various reasons. You know, a lot having to do with procedural audio and also stuff like effects and tails and waiting for effect tails to play out, etc. So this actually worked out because we drive stopping the sound in meta sound almost identically to regular audio sources, which is unfinished. I should start speaking in past tense. I should say I previously worked at Epic, I now work at Meow Labs, but yeah, sometimes it's sorry, I'll just start speaking present tense about Unreal as a code base I'm passionate about. So yeah, so I think actually it's probably outside the scope for me to actually just talk about the way that audio just works in Unreal. And it's fairly well documented, and there's great examples of it. But just know that any meta sound graphs that you use can just be used like any other audio asset, right? Like any like wave that you drag in. The meta sound that you design ends up being used and can be used identically and can be injected into things identically. It allows for like really easy mix and match and plug and play as well. So yeah, so after that, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that Faust plugin and setting it up. So real quick, I'm just going to save everything that I did here. When you create a new project, right? Let's just go to my actual Unreal projects. There we go. So this is something I just generated just now. You likely will not have a project local plugins folder. So the first thing that you have to do after you create a new UE5 project is create a new plugins folder in the directory and just copy the plugin in here. After you do that, if you want, you can rebuild the plugin from scratch from source. I've also included a DLL for Win64. There's nothing here that's Windows specific, the way that I've set it up. But I've only tested on Windows. So copy that everywhere with that. But yeah, after you create that plugin, the version that's in the Google Drive has a very minimal UI, which you can access by clicking the window button here, and you'll see this little Faust meta sound node. And one huge button for the Faust meta sound node, which says this project needs to be set up. And you're going to have to actually hit setup and restart the project, right? So you hit this, and the thing that's different, you'll notice like we created this kind of stubbed out version of the generated Faust plugin. And at that point, you'll be prompted to restart the editor. So I'll just start doing that.
Ethan, are you using multiple monitors? Because we're still seeing just your Unreal scene. We didn't see you put a plugin anywhere.
Oh shoot, you know why? Because I moved to the application only. Okay, good call out, thank you. I'm gonna stop presenting that, I'm gonna present my entire screen again. Thank you. All right, quick rewind. So, previously on Ethan's Metasound plugin, I'll go back to this project. So previously, right, you create the plugins directory, copy in this folder. This folder did not exist before. I have a precompiled 164 binary. You're able to compile all the better. Because then you can compile from scratch, I have source included as well. And when I hit that, were you able to see the button that was like generate Faust plugin in Unreal?
No.
Okay, interesting. All right, yeah, I think it was only showing the editor window, and if I had docked the tab onto that window, Google Meet would then show it. So my apologies for that. There was a giant button that said generate Faust plugin, and the only thing that, yeah.
Maybe if we, can you send me a Zoom link? Would that be better for you?
Yeah, I can do Zoom.
Okay, let's try that. At least we have sound and probably it's going to be better.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, see you in a bit.
Okay.
All right, hey, more importantly,
And we hear you.
everyone, how's that? Yeah.
We had a strange sound, but
Oh, horrible sound. Okay, let's start with the normal sound. All right, I'm gonna build this again real quick, just to show this up top in a way that makes a little bit more sense. All right, so, meta sound, input is on play, and then the aux video goes out, and we're gonna just play this sound here. Let me see if I just get, I'll just do the class. So, does that,
it works.
Okay, so that sounds like just like,
Yes.
does it sound like a class? Okay, cool. And when we hit this repeat trigger, this is the Metro project. Repeat output, right? And then instead of having to, and then we can just kind of show up that this thing is like fairly even, example accurate when we re-trigger every 0.4 seconds. And I can quickly show up. Previously I talked a little bit about, this thing you can go as granular as you want, and previous iteration of the engine, we've had issues with the render quantum, but it's now even, these kind of reviews. So, I'll just have this. And I'm going to also show off this audio stream kind of work as well. So I'm gonna hit this, do this. So we're mixing together two mono sources. I'm going to actually break this link so that we can, actually kind of weird that's not working, but oh well. Yeah, so before I had this like envelope follower, right? Envelope followers, you can just kind of track the loudness of, so, it's like a liquid heat detector kind of situation. Plug this into the gain here, right? So that we're actually controlling the loudness of this mixer, like literally like right at the fader with how loud the left channel, this wave player is. I'm just setting up this saw generator, right? Just to demonstrate, and the output of the saw, which is like constantly playing at 440, will then be modulated by how loud the left channel here is. right? So, so here, yeah, it's actually tracking, and we can actually make it way more stutter steppy by just like making this envelope super quick. So here it's kind of it has a behavior or something that you can use for people compression. And then for things having to do with feedback, right? We had this concept of send the audio, right? Which yeah, you could use for like you can send basically whatever you want. And let's say it's like let's call this a cat, right? And you just set up a match receive object. And this is how you do feedback inside these graphs, right? It was kind of like tap in and tap out with maximum speed, but more generic for both audio and for like arbitrary data types, and allows us to like really have explicit feedback systems. And something like this is going to actually modulate that. Alright, this is going. So yeah, all right. So that was the meta sound. Sorry, just like blitz up. Like here's like 3 or 4 of the main concepts of meta sounds, just kind of set up very quickly. The library itself that's built in is actually really self-like. This is all Aaron McLaren, Max Hayes, and Rodney and Jimmy Smith that really painstakingly created this really massive standard library content for Unreal 5. Like just a year ago, right, there was like 4 or 5 using it, so it's really incredible that they did all this work. And previously, the other thing that we were doing was just showing off that generated meta sound actually behaves like a audio asset, right? So I think previously on here, I created the audio component on the camera itself. And you know, in the same way that you could actually just like drag an audio asset onto here, you can now drag your meta sound onto it, and it just interoperates with the whole existing like design front end of the Unreal Audio Engine. So if I can find the autoplay. Okay, let me get this over here. And yeah. Cool. And autoactivate, yeah. Okay, cool. Just want to make sure that this was like this. And now it's on the camera. I'm gonna set up gonna delete it from here real quick. And sorry with the big text, I guess a little bit more. I have a little bit more difficulty with like setting these kind of things up. Yeah. But yeah. And now I'm going to drag this on here, the static source. We need to make sure that it auto-activates. So that I was just dragging that sound into the scene, make it a point source to be there. And when it's very similar if you use UE4. If you drag in like a static audio asset on here, it works the exact same way. And now we got this thing over here, which can actually be spatialized. Yeah. So cool. All right, and then the other thing. Sorry, wrapping back through the demo, is we dragged in the plugin here, and we used the window here, under window, Faust meta sound nodes, to actually create this thing. And the way that the Faust meta sound node works it imports like generated CTP from the Faust ID. Goes to the Faust ID. Just gonna do like a. Yeah, let's do. I love like the brass one. So yeah, let's do this one. Oh, it's already my project. Why? Okay. I'm gonna delete some of these. I didn't realize that I had a project set up. That's awesome. Cool. Can I export this real quick? Hopefully, yeah, that works. Cool. Gonna open this. Extract it. And now, yeah, the UI will have a drag and drop every time I actually like release this thing. But for now, this is a little bit of a hack, which is this little import test here with a PAW. Like this. What's it called again? All right, so the live demo. I hope this works. Hope I didn't break this since I recorded the top. But yeah, so this auto generates and invokes a compiler, and then yep, there we go. And then actually, like you'll see here. Let me actually show you a peek behind the curtain. We like kind of auto generate based on this CTP file that's submitted. This I'm going to open it with Notepad. Yeah, so this is the auto-generated code. You can actually see that we actually do a pound include injection of the CTP file itself. And we use this little macro hack. Because the class name is my DSP. And we undef the include guards here as like part of the hack. And then this is actually the glue. This is the thing that creates the UI designer for the Faust object and generates the object. Without restarting the editor, right, it gets compiled to the DLL, and then that DLL gets loaded dynamically at runtime from the editor. So we didn't restart the editor since that import, to be clear. And now, you know, we can open this, and immediately, right, we got our little brass thing. So instead of this saw, get rid of this receive, also simplify things. You know, we've got this interface, right? And I kind of use tightness based on the UI elements themselves that are used by this thing. So you can actually see this maps to the inputs of, sorry, that's a clarinet. I may have accidentally exported the clarinet as brass DSP. I'm just realizing that we'll find out a cool way. But yeah, let's start.
You need to select the brass DSP by clicking on the left of the name, so that it's the main.
Yeah, the main one.
It was not the right one which was selected.
Oh yeah, that's my bad. I'm totally okay with clarinet.
Okay.
I just accidentally called the clarinet brass. So to be clear, this is the clarinet object that I accidentally renamed to brass, and that's on me. So yeah, let's just start doing a little bit of this. Here, actually, let me just check. So when we're listening to this, right? Let's just try to emulate something here. So 0.5, 0.1, 2005, 0.25, 0.8. I don't know. Actually, we can have more fun with that. Let's try something risky. So instead of this like mono mixer, check this out. You're going to use the envelope to modulate the pressure of this clarinet. And use this. Just going to check the parameters that I set up here. or that our default is here, 4.8, 8 by 5 times, okay. So 8, 4.5, 4.5, 4.5. All right, let's try this out. Let's try. Okay, before we do this, let's try this like one more now. Is this? All right, so that's a clarinet. Let's set that clarinet. But I'm greedy. I want to get this. I want to try to get this going. Let's try it. All right, so I want to modulate this pressure. I'm going to multiply this by, let's just like pick it up a little bit and see if that breaks anything. Oh. So now we're like literally sizing the output of this thing. And we can do that with like a quick mono mixer just to show what's actually happening here. So this is now actually synchronized to this thing. That. And I'll send out the left channel here. And yeah, so like it's being modulated, the parameters being modulated in real time based on audio analysis going on in the graph. Yeah, and I think that's like pretty much. I don't know how overtime I am. I know we started 10 minutes late, and it's 10 minutes past 8:30.
The problem that we have is that maybe 3 minutes.
Okay.
Sorry for that, because I think that we have to move until 6:30. So
gotcha.
we still have the Rob workshop.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll let that go. Yeah, honestly, at this point, I think I've hit all the hits of like the general lab, and without getting into an actual like procedural generation, which is a whole different thing.
Ethan?
But that being said, oh, go ahead, Rob.
Ethan, I think Rob Hamilton has a question for you.
Sure.
Ethan, just one quick question. When you loaded the plugin, you went really quickly over how you actually got it into UE5 through the window, and for the life of me, I can't figure out how you did it. Can you do that really quickly?
Oh wait, how I like imported the plugin?
Yeah. Because it doesn't show up in the plugins menu. Or it's not like just when you took your pre-compiled plugin and loaded it into the scene before you built the Faust one, right? Your own plugin.
Oh, like my own meta sound.
Yeah.
Or, yeah. So yeah, to be clear, like this is the meta sound graph, right? And so yeah, this might be a better way to show it. So that last wave file that we're using here. Right, so, yeah, when we drag something in here, right, you can drag in something else, just like an ambient point source in the world. Right? Same way that works. This meta sound, any meta sound that you create, basically just behaves like an audio asset. In a VLC, you can like inject it procedurally into an audio component. You can procedurally spawn audio components, or you can drag it. Same way. And now it's our sidechain object. Sorry, was that, did that answer?
No, how do you get your plugin into your project so that in the command line you can type Faust import?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I kind of glossed over that because I was in kind of Google Meet, Zoom window. So currently, that Google Drive link, when you create a new project, this plugins directory may exist in the root folder of your project, or you may need to create this directory. So at that point, you copy and paste this in the Faust meta sound plugin. At that point, the plugin is in there. I've only created pre-compiled binaries for it for Win64. But if you are able to compile source, you're able to create C++ objects, this will, I have the source included and it will compile from scratch when you launch the project.
Oh, okay, so do we have to relaunch the project to get it to recompile in UE5? Is that what you're saying?
No, you do not. Okay, sorry. So that, to be clear, yeah. So after the first time, right, we regenerate the plugin itself, the stub, and then you restart the editor after like the first time you use it. And that's just because of the detail we engine. So you do have to relaunch the editor once, but then importing individual Faust scripts, you do not have to restart the editor.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, when you import individual objects with that import Faust command, it works immediately without restart by doing just like a DLL swap. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Actually, yeah. Let me just open it up.
Would it be possible in the future to integrate a Faust development environment inside of MetaSound to avoid the export trick?
That's a great question. Because right now, this is kind of built as like a workflow for like you designed the Faust object into the IDE and you push it in, but you can definitely see a situation where you are editing Faust scripts like live in this, and we've linked in with Faust and are like dynamically recompiling using with Faust and defined tool chain. Yeah, it's just something that I've not incorporated, but you can see this plugin handling full. For now, this was kind of the option of just use the compiler that Unreal's using right now and recompile with that and inject. But yeah, I think that that's something that I'd like to add to this plugin before I submit the PR. So one last thing is that I talked to Aaron, I talked to the audio team, and I'll get this into the engine after I finish up some UI stuff and some final features. So hopefully by the time UE5 actually comes out for real, you can just use stuff without downloading any additional plugins. So that's Unreal.
Okay, that's really something we need to rediscuss because that's super interesting. But we are running out of time, so I'm really sorry, Ethan, for all the technical difficulties.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
And thank you again. Thank you very much again.
Yeah.